Hey everyone and welcome back to Storytime. My name is Jake and today we're going to be looking at the subreddit Malicious Compliance, where people conform to the letter but not the spirit of a request. You want to call me a liar? Fine, get someone else to run your shop. This happened to me about 5 years ago when I worked for a fast food company in London. I'd been working there for about 2 years and I worked my way up to branch team leader, which meant I was responsible for opening and closing the store, cashing up, stock ordering, etc. The company had this idea of doing away with branch managers and instead leaving branch team leaders to run the stores and reporting back to area managers. I turned up to an afternoon closing shift about an hour late once because I was stuck on a tube train after somebody had sadly jumped under a train. There was obviously no mobile signal and I had no way of contacting work to let them know I'd be late. When I did arrive, I logged onto the system and entered the reason why I was late, and thought nothing more about it. I sent a text to the area manager about 10 minutes later to explain what had happened, but received no reply. A few weeks later, I was invited for a disciplinary hearing with the area manager because of this. I wasn't too bothered because I knew that the employee handbook stated that you were only excused from phoning in absence or more than 15-minute lateness if you could prove that there were extreme circumstances involved. So I wrote a short statement explaining this and even printed a copy of the incident statement from the Transport for London website. I attended the meeting about a week later. We sat at a table in a windowless office and he had a list of questions in front of him and his assistant typed everything up on a laptop. I calmly explained the circumstances. I couldn't call or text anybody at the branch because I was 100 feet underground. The incident occurred while I was already underground, there was no Wi-Fi signal between stations, etc. All of my points were dismissed, to the point that I was asked, "Why didn't you text me?" the area manager, "as soon as you arrived at the tube station?" Well, simply because the branch I was working at was inside the station, and less than a 30-second walk from the tube escalator. It would have taken me longer to type a message explaining the circumstances than it would for me to have done it when I arrived. There were a few other silly suggestions like, "Why didn't you check the information board before boarding the train and notify me of the delay beforehand?" Because the poor soul hadn't jumped in front of the train at that point. I should add at this point that this company proudly advertised for about a year that they were supporting a suicide prevention charity. At the end of the meeting, he decided that he didn't think the circumstances were extreme enough and so gave me a written warning which would remain on my employee file for 2 years. Because of other factors, namely the low wage and 4-hour contract, I was thinking of leaving anyway, so I decided to inconvenience him as much as I could. This disciplinary hearing had been held on a Monday morning and had gone on for about an hour. The employee handbook said that employee meetings, including disciplinary meetings that are not held at your own branch, would entitle you to a statutory 90 minutes of pay each way, plus travel expenses. I was originally scheduled to open and close the shop every day that week, from 8:30 to 6:30 PM. This was always classed as overtime, on top of my 4-hour contract. I told him that if he's calling me a liar and doesn't believe what I told him, despite all the evidence, that I want to revert back to my 4-hour a week contracted hours. I then reminded him that I'd now done my 4 hours for the week, so he'll have to find someone else to run the shop this week. His face dropped as he asked me to wait while he found a staff cover for the store. Because he knew there was nothing he could do, he frantically started phoning around other store team leaders and deputy managers to ask if they can cover my branch for the week. None of them could. After he ended the 5th or 6th phone call, I asked if I could go now. He asked me to wait while he phoned one more person. It's no surprise that they couldn't do it either. He sat back in his chair and said, "Okay, what can I do for you to work these shifts?" I probably could have asked for double time, but I'm not an extortionist. I simply said, "Overturn this ridiculous decision to give me a written warning and I'll work as much as you want." His assistant shook her head and said, "It's already been submitted. I can't change it now." I just stared at him as I could see that he hadn't planned for this. After another 30 seconds of him texting somebody, I just got up and left, stating that I only want to carry out my 4-hour shifts until further notice. A few days later, I heard from a team member who I was good friends with that he'd had to have a branch team leader from the other side of London to open the shop at 7 AM so that she had time to open up before going to her own store to open there. and then have a different branch team leader come and close the store once they'd closed theirs, with team members running the branch during the day. I went in for one 4-hour shift the following week, just to see how much the branch had fallen behind with everything. I resigned after that and went on to work for another company, which didn't have such an authoritarian outlook on staff. How is this company about to support a suicide prevention charity and then try and say that a suicide is not an extreme enough circumstance? Okay, McDonald's, come on. I was told to stay in my lane, so now I get to come to the office and do almost nothing. A bit of a backstory. I work at a studio which generally doesn't need super high-end computers for most of its employees. The exception to this being 2 of my colleagues and me, because we work on game engines for in-house stuff and VR presentations. Most of the company's work doesn't rely on any real-time graphics, and we had to beg them to upgrade our systems out of Windows 7 and workstation motherboards, mainly because game engines, and VR hardware in particular, have all but dropped support for Windows 7, and non-consumer level computer hardware. They decided to get new computers once and for all, built to our specs, just to shut us up once and for all. So last week, my computer starts crashing. It crashes when I start, it crashes when I do anything, typically within 10 to 15 minutes of powering on. I raise an IT request for it, as is protocol. While the request is assigned, I do a few sanity checks of my own, just to be able to gain any additional information which could help them out. I figure that these are not the workstation computers for which they have spare parts, and I should probably help them out because I was one of the people who badgered them into getting these machines for us in the first place. Almost immediately, I notice that the CPU isn't being cooled, and I trace it back to either a faulty pump in the water cooling setup that we had, or a faulty seal around the pipe that goes to the pump. There was a leak, and all the liquid had evaporated or leaked away and dried. Now, I'm no expert on water cooling for PCs by any stretch, but it was quite clear that nothing was being cooled. So when the IT guy came by, I told him it was probably something to do with the water cooling pump, as the CPU is running really hot. IT guy tells me that I shouldn't have been poking around in there myself, but he appreciates the help nonetheless. He takes the computer and passes it off to his dumb boss, DB from now, the person who checks the faulty hardware before making a decision. The boss is livid. He tells the first guy that what I told him is meaningless, and to let the professionals handle it. Okay. The boss comes to the same conclusion about the pump himself after wasting a day. It's after this that it all gets really weird. So, to ensure that I could continue my work, I get another computer assigned to me. It's one of the normal workstation PCs that they have, but I'm not really complaining. I get how it is. I start raising IT requests for software installation so that I can at least have everything that I know works on these machines and get some work done. Some of the software works, and I am able to continue my work, even though it's in a very limited capacity. 2 days passed like this, and I never heard back from IT about my computer. I asked the boss about any progress, and he informs me that they themselves didn't have any water cooling parts in the office, so they had to go to the vendor they bought the computer from for it. And then the vendor said it would take 3 to 4 weeks to procure said part. I was speechless. It's just a dumb water cooler. At that moment, I thought maybe the boss has asked for the exact model and make of the part, which may or may not be available, since these things go in and out of stock all the time. What followed was this exchange. We don't need the exact same model. If that's what you've asked the vendor for, anything compatible with the CPU should work, and we could probably get a newer or faster one. Who's the technician here? Don't lecture to me about compatibility. This isn't your personal computer, it's company property. The guy says 1 month. I can't not work for 1 month. We haven't closed your request. Go back and log your project time with the request ID. Leave the actual diagnostics and repairs to the actual technicians. Needless to say, I was pretty annoyed at that, but I decided to follow his instructions to the letter. I have since started logging my time as quote-unquote system down with the request ID for my original ticket. I come into work, do what I can on this replacement computer, and chill for the rest of the day. This is going to raise a lot of eyebrows when IT requests are tailed at the end of the month, and I'm looking forward to it. Till then, it's been 1 week, and I'm looking forward to 2 to 3 more of these. Or at least till the boss decides to at least give my suggestion some thought, and not chase after the exact same part. So this story was actually only posted 3 hours ago at the time of reading, so if you guys want to actually check out what happens, then just check in the description below, I'll leave a link to it, and you can check back within like a month or something to see if he's updated it. Hey everyone, I hope you're all having a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you did, then please do leave a like on it as it helps out the channel so much. If you want to check out some other videos, then click on screen right now, or check out the playlist down below so you can binge watch the videos. But for now, thank you for watching and I will see you tomorrow.